At the, I believe, the fourth annual City Council Candidate Forum. I'm Ken Hall, I'm the library director here. Just to go over quickly what's going on here, we have 6 candidates, starting with, on my far right, Jim Sobel, Leanne Lorigan, Gary Miller, Jim Sitter, or Jim and
Dan.
Even better, especially when you're throwing that lever.
Yeah.
Rob Van de Zant and John Piper. We have, as always, for the last, I believe, 3 years now, our distinguished moderator, former city councilman and council president, Marty Ryan, and our 3 panelists, which is from Sunny 97, Greg Stensland, also from the reporter and town historian, Mike Menser, and from KFIZ, Bob Hoffmaster.
Nelson.
Can you tell I'm leaving? And I'm supposed to be standing in front of the camera.
Oops, there we go.
This, you know, you get in front of a crowd, you know everything, but you get nervous, especially when it comes to news. But I can say that although this is put on by the library, all questions come from our 3 panelists. And there is a strict formula we have here. Each candidate gets to give a 3-minute opening statement, and we do have our assistant, Carrie Fleming, here as the timer. And then we'll have 2 questions from each panel of our panelists, and each of our distinguished candidates will be able to have 1 minute on each answer. And then there will be, and there'll be a closing remark. I believe 1 minute.
Yes.
And this is being recorded, fortunately for me. Both an audio recording that will be available on our website, www.fdlpl.org. And for the first year, we'll start doing a video recording, and that would be a link on our website no sooner than Monday. But we'll get an announcement out about that as well. So thank you all for being here. I see we have almost a full house, so we'll, as soon as we get started, I'll get on a couple more chairs. So with that, Marty Ryan.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody. We're going to go ahead and begin. This panel up here is about to step forward in front of the voters and express their interest in serving the Civic Council. Our goal this evening is to allow you to have an opportunity to learn a little bit more about them. Some have sat in the position, have made decisions which you can judge. Others are looking to come in and give a little bit more community involvement. It's actually one of the greatest jobs in the city to have the ability to serve its citizens in this manner. So we're very excited that these people have stepped forward, no matter who wins or loses, that you've stepped forward and taken an opportunity to at least try. So with that, we'll start with our introductions, and we're going to start in the order in which they arrived. One of my roles this evening will be to kind of control that order. I thought what was fair about that this evening would be to take it as the members arrive. So Mr. Piper, you will be number 1, and giving your introduction.
Good evening, thanks Marty, and welcome everybody to the forum tonight. Appreciate the turnout. My name is John Piper. I reside at 311 Newton Avenue here in the city of Fond du Lac. Been here for about 11 years. I have a daughter, 9 years old. I'm a single dad. I'm employed with Menards, if anybody doesn't know that yet. I've been there with 16.5 years. And I love Fond du Lac and have a great passion for the city. The reason I'm running for Fond du Lac City Council is because I have a passion for the city. And I believe I can provide the needed leadership for the city. I'm a caring individual. My personal experiences in life and my successes are thanks to good old-fashioned hard work. As your Fond du Lac City Council person, I will roll up my sleeves and apply the skills to the business of running our fine city. I believe I can and will provide the capable leadership to maintain Fond du Lac's reputation as one of our nation's safest metropolitan places to live and work. My motivation for running for City Council is to keep economic growth moving. I will work with the downtown partnerships and be actively involved in businesses and potential businesses to locate and expand in Fond du Lac. I will promote reasonable and continued growth. Growth allows us to keep our taxes low, because as the tax base increases, the pressure to raise taxes is reduced. I have a strong economic mind for development while maintaining the gatekeepers' attitude about tax dollars. Too often our hard-earned dollars are paid in taxes are squandered on unnecessary studies, surveys, consultants, and programs to tell us what we already know. We need to keep providing a stable, business-friendly environment. Cutting wasteful spending. During these increasingly complex and difficult times, everyone has to make sacrifices. The city of Fond du Lac should also. Finally, our police and fire departments must remain a high priority in order to the citizens and businesses to feel safe and to prosper. Continued focus on public safety improves neighborhoods and the quality of life and standard of living in all areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sabo.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank Ken Hall and the Lac Public Library for holding this very important for election forum. I also want to thank all the citizens who supported me during my 4 terms, which means 8 years. I served from 2002 through 2012, and I look for their continued support in this election. Over the 8 years I was on council, water was and still is an issue. My gut feeling is that we are near to put closure on the water problem. I'll keep my fingers crossed on that. The biggest work in process right now is finding the best qualified person to take over the reins from Tom Perry. We will miss you, Tom, and as all the citizens comment will. Being a councilman for the past 8 years, it was a privilege and a pleasure for me what my decisions were made by investigating related to the issues before me and then voting with the taxpayers in mind. If elected, I will continue to support the downtown business district and our 2 public safety divisions, the fire and the police department. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Van Zandt.
I want to start by saying I want to thank everyone for coming tonight to this important event, important decision. I want to also thank Ken Hall, the library, and Marty Ryan for your time tonight. My name is Rob Van Zandt. I'm seeking re-election to the City Council. I'm 42 years old. I'm married to my wife, Debbie, for over 14 years. I have 3 sons, 19, 17, and 14. My oldest is currently serving in the Army, and he is stationed in Korea. My 17-year-old is a senior at Fondy High, and he is leaving beginning of July for the Army also. And my 15-year-old, he turned his 15 yesterday, is a freshman at Fondy High. I'm a veteran of the United States Air Force, I'm a member of the American Legion, and I'm also a certified football official with the WIAA. Why am I running for City Council re-election? First is that I love this city. I truly love serving on City Council. I have proven over the last 2 years that I have truly listened to all the citizens of Fond du Lac. It doesn't matter if the subject is going to be controversial or not. The citizens know that they can come to me and listen, and I will listen to what they have to say. I've asked the tough questions of staff. I've asked the questions that I wanted to ask when I wasn't on City Council. I want to continue with the search for a new city manager, being one of them, if not the most important decision I will make on City Council. I want to continue to keep taxes low in this great city and to continue to bring a voice of common sense to the City Council and continue to ask the tough questions. I ask for your vote on April 3rd. I am the one candidate that does listen to all citizens, and I will continue to do so if re-elected. Thank you.
Ms. Logan?
Thanks, Marty. Thanks, Ken Hall, in the Public Library for hosting this, and thank you everyone for coming. My name is Leanne Lorgan. My husband Brian and I have lived here for 23 years. We're from Manitowoc originally, which is a town very similar to Fond du Lac. I have one son, his name is Jim, and he's currently serving in AmeriCorps. I have unique qualifications for City Council. I have a bachelor's in science degree in quality productive management from Marian University. I have been in various business roles for the past 23 years. 10 years I've worked in manufacturing at a company called Rigaware, where I was product and project manager. 10 years I was a specialty pharmaceutical rep, and currently I work as a business development associate for Vision Healthcare. I have experience in leadership roles in such as managing large projects, managing quality and cost reduction projects, working in team environment, and managing department budgets. The leadership roles I've been a part of have been in business and in volunteering. I have been an officer at the Fond du Lac Elks Lodge for the past 6 years, and I've been involved in numerous fundraising projects for them. I've served on other committees such as the Downtown Fond du Lac Partnership for several years. My motivation for running for city council is because I'm a homeowner and live in the city. High taxes, high water bills are just a few of my concerns and how it affects all of us and our ability to have to live a rich and full life. There are major challenges facing the city over the next year. The hiring of a new city manager, the budget, high water bills are on most people's minds. But I also believe we need to keep in mind our city infrastructure. The 151 bypass with limited access is essentially cut-off road for Fond du Lac on the south and east end of town. The bridge project over Pioneer Road is on hold. This is a major artery leading to one of our largest businesses, Mercury Marine. I would like to explore developing our lakefront and making Fond du Lac more of a destination. I'm concerned about our high water bills and quarterly billing. I have heard from many concerned homeowners and renters that it's very difficult to pay these bills. I'd like to see a feasibility study done on monthly billings instead of quarterly, so that the average consumer can better budget their money. Perhaps we'll have fewer delinquencies in water bills if they're affordable. When working on the city budget, I hope that our team will be creative. If there's an employer incentive program, I would hope that we would have our employees submit ideas. We need principal leaders that are forward-thinking, and I welcome the opportunity to be one of those leaders. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sitter?
My name is Dan Sitter. I'd like to thank everybody for showing up, for Ken for butchering my name and calling me Jim. I seem to be incredibly loud there for a second. I'm running for city council because I live here in the city. I've lived here for about the last 9 years. I've been a teacher at Fond du Lac High School for 8 of those years. This year I currently work as an integration of technology, helping our school district get ready for a massive one-to-one computer rollout, which you'll all be hearing a lot more about as we move forward. I'm a social studies teacher, so I've taught how things run. I've been involved in different community aspects, and what I'm seeing happening now in the city is I see that we're at a crossroads. We have a lot of things happening all at the same time. As the economy is down, we have a city manager who has done an incredibly good job who's leaving. And other people have mentioned that that's one of the most important positions that needs to be filled in the city. We also have city employees that make all of the city functions functional. So we have city employees right now that are also in limbo. They don't know exactly what's going to happen to them next. And coming from my point of view, I want to sit down and find out what is going to be the best way to take care of them because they take care of our city. I also want to make sure that my kids continue to have the quality of life that I've come to expect living in Fond du Lac. I've been welcomed to this community with open arms. We've loved going over to the lake shore, playing in the, it's not a water tower, the lighthouse, running up and down that, making sure the kids don't fall down the steps. And so I'm just really excited for the opportunity to be on the city council, help lead our city into a place where we're all going to be proud to say we're from Fond du Lac. And that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
Thank you, Marty, Ken, and everybody. This is a tremendous turnout, more so than I remember over the last 2 years. My name is Gary Miller. I'm an incumbent for the city council. I've been a very happy resident for 33 years. We own our home outright, and I came to Fond du Lac in the fall of 1979. and served for 20 years as executive director of Winnebago and Uniserv. That is a fancy name for a union representative. In 1999, I retired from that position, and the Moraine Park Technical College hired me as a full-time math instructor, and I served in that capacity for 8 years. So, what I bring to, and have brought to the city council, is the ability to take a look at issues without a predetermined mindset. I have the ability to analyze both sides of an issue. I've worked over the 20 years as a union representative, analyzing very complex school district budgets. That carried over to the Fond du Lac City budget, different terminology, but basically paying attention to revenues and expenditures and making sure that taxpayers get their money's worth. 2 years ago, in answering the question about, why are you running for the city council, other than my wife asking me, are you crazy? Are you serious? And so I had to get her permission before I did it. I wanted to make sure that I paid back the time and effort of many previous city council members, and I realized over the last 2 years, all I've done is make a deposit, and I need more time to meet that promise. I've been very involved in this community over the last 33 years. I've been a member of the United Way Board, Scouts, YMCA, Kiwanis for many, many years, and I look forward to serving you and the citizens of Fond du Lac for another 2 years. I also maintain an open mind on issues. I study them. I try to make informed, intelligent decisions, and not just based upon somebody's idea of they'd like to see, something happen or something change.
Mr. Miller, that's our time. So thank you. That's the introduction portion. So is everyone feeling better? Take a big breath. It's a little nerve-wracking when you first get up here, but the worst part's over with. Everybody knows who you are now. Now they want to hear what you're about. So just relax, be yourself. And how this is going to work is we're going to have our panels ask particular questions. We have a distinguished panel that has done a great job for us in the past. Mike Menser from our Fond du Lac Reporter, Greg Stensland from Sunny 97, a whole host of the numbers over there, and Bob Nelson is with us from KFIZ. What we're going to do is allow them to ask a question, and each panelist is going to get an opportunity to respond to that question. Terry's 2 minutes, right? About 2 minutes. Terry hears our counter, so if you see somebody holding up a piece of paper, that's telling you got about 30 seconds. So what you want to do is make sure you have your thoughts clear. As the question gets asked, if you forget the question, or you want to hear it again before you answer the question, we'll take time to answer that. That won't come off of your time. So this is not about debating. This is about just hearing the question and answering the question. Okay. We're going to reverse the order, so Miller gets to go first, and we're going to mix the order up. And we're going to go with Mike first, Stensland second, Nelson third. But Mike will have the opportunity to ask the first question.
Thank you very much. In your estimation, what is the overriding council issue in the coming year, and how do you plan to address it?
Mr. Miller?
Ready?
Go ahead.
I believe that finding a city manager who can fill the shoes but not duplicate what Tom Harry has done over his term in office. We need to find a person whose qualifications and skills will create a natural fit for the city of Fond du Lac. If we say, well, we'd like to have somebody exactly like Tom Harry, then we miss out perhaps on half of the available candidacy, which would be females. So I'm hoping that we are presented with a good, qualified slate of candidates. We'll have a chance to meet them, interview them, and make, I believe, the most important decision that we will be making in the next 5 to 10 years. Finding a city manager that fits the city of Farmville.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Sitter.
I think the most overriding, I mean, obviously the hiring of the city manager is important, but I look at the new pay scale / salary schedule for the public employees as the most important, because once you put that into place, and I think at last night's council meeting, it was pretty well stated that whatever this system is going to look like, whether it's the same or there's going to be change, we know this. And then, so the city manager is going to have to be somebody that's going to be able to implement that change. So whatever the structure is going to be, the heavy lifting is going to be needed to make sure that every city employee feels that they can trust that system and that they can work well within that system. And so the question was, what's the overriding arch for the next year? I think the immediacy is the city manager, but I think that the overall year is more about the pay scale and the salary schedule and how, using the tight economic times we're in, how we're going to manage those things, because we can't continue to put the burden just on public employees. That's it.
Morgan.
The pay scale, the budget are all going to be big issues, but without the right city manager in place, those challenges are just going to be compounded. So it's definitely the city manager. And if I'm on city council, I would be looking for somebody that's definitely shown innovation and move their city progressively. And I would want to see hard facts to show that they have economically made a difference in their city.
Mr. Vandazani.
Overriding thing for the next year and for the next 5 to 10 years is picking the correct city manager. Choosing the right city manager is going to lead the path of what way Fond du Lac is going to go for the next 5 to 10 years, if not beyond. We need someone who's going to be a strong leader, strong financial background, and someone that will take advice from the supervisors of each department. Mr. Harry has hired great people. Mr. Skip, Public Works. Mr. DeVries, Engineering Department, our 2 newest acquisitions. And Ms. Hoffman as our HR Director. This new city manager has to lean on these people because they're jumping into a whole new ballgame, whether it's the budget or whatever situation arises. We need someone who's strong-willed, that's going to lead properly, and take suggestions from the department heads that we have in place. So, thank you.
Mr. Sabo.
I agree with everybody's statement about the city manager. If we could clone somebody, it would be just perfect. We'd have exactly what we had. But the industrial parks, now the economy is getting slightly better. We're trying to continue to try to get the industrial parks built, and that's going to bring in a lot of jobs. And we do need jobs in farmland right now. As far as the fire department, police department, we want to maintain them at the current people they have per shift right now, and continue with the 5-year plan, so that if they need new vehicles, we plan it out 5 years and make sure that stays in place. Those are the people that come out to your house if you call 911 to save your life, whatever. We can't do anything without those 2 entities.
Mr. Pike.
I'm gonna say the big issue would be the city manager. Like I said, Tom Harry did a wonderful job for the city. It's gonna be hard to replace him, but I think there's people out there that have the capabilities to run this fine city forward and give the council the guidance in the future. Again, I mean, Tom Harry did a good job as far as the administration of his departments, police, fire, whatever, working along with these guys. What I like to see is, my personal experience, what I just did in the last months, I personally took it upon me to ride with the police department here in Fond du Lac and right along with the fire department on separate occasions on duty with them for 8 hours a day. And them guys are top notch. It's amazing what these guys go through and the calls that went on. I feel that the city council should, in upcoming years, ride along with these people so they know what they're voting on, what they're going through. That's, I think, is more important too, that so they actually see these guys in action, they know where they're coming from, they're voting on issues and stuff like that. Thank you.
Our panelists will have an opportunity to do a follow-up question. You want to do it now, or do you want to go through the panel once, or you want to do it now, Mike, or?
Could I do it?
Go ahead.
I think about half the question got answered, down the list. How do you plan to address the city manager issue? How do you plan to address the hiring, the selection of the city manager?
Ms. Lorgan will take you first.
I think I touched briefly on it. It's really looking to see what that candidate has done previously in the city that he's in, or she is in. So it's having quantitative facts and looking for innovation and progression. And what I'm looking for is something that would show that we could help grow Fond du Lac as more of a destination. I see too many people on the weekends leaving Fond du Lac to go somewhere else for dinner or going somewhere else for the weekend instead of thinking of as their own hometown as a place to stay and as a destination. I really truly believe we have this beautiful lakefront and we don't use it enough, and that if we could have more development, not without overdoing our lakefront area, but having a destination, something similar to Sheboygan has along their riverfront and their lakefront, where there's shops, and we're just enhancing the whole area. So when you look at the accumulation of what that city manager candidate has done, it's just knowing that he has really can prove that he has done something that makes a difference in that city, and that he can bring that here to Fond du Lac.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
The current city council has already interviewed with the gentleman who represents Voorhees Company. A couple of things that I told him that I would like to see. And those that know me know I'm somewhat verbose. I want somebody who's not afraid to tell me or any member of the city council to shut up in a most productive way. And sometimes, that happens. We talk to hear ourselves talk. And so I have to say that's something that Tom Harry does very well. But also, somebody that has had experience, not necessarily as a city manager in another community or another situation, but somebody that has dealt directly with a group of 7 individually thinking people like the Fond du Lac City Council, and is not afraid to step out and give us his or her best advice as to where he or she thinks we need to go.
Mr. Sitter?
Well, since I'm the only guy up here that didn't think the city manager was at the top of my list, but it ties in perfectly with it. I mean, you asked how would I address it? I would address the fact that I'm going to rely on the council before me, that they have vetted the process, that they've hired the right consultant to bring people in front of us that are going to be masterly qualified. If that person, then also being on the council, I'm going to get to choose who that person is. But whoever we hire, no matter if we could clone former city manager or make them better or whatever you want to call it, if we hand them a massively disgruntled workforce, it doesn't matter what kind of supervisor or director or you are. I guess it does matter, because if you're beyond belief, then you can turn that all the way around. But if we want our city to function properly, yes, we need solid, wonderful leadership. But leadership can only take you so far. It's a symbiotic relationship. You can't have one without the other. And so I would say let's make the new city manager's job as smooth a transition as possible. and making sure that we have city employees and the city functioning in a way that there's not animosity and distrust.
Thank you, Mr. Sabo.
I was fortunate enough to have been here 7 years ago when we selected Tom Harry. We spent about 4 days up at in the conference rooms in the headquarters. And that was a long 4 days. We did a lot of investigating, looking at the bylaws that they came in with and the questions. And we wound up with Tom Harry. And it didn't happen overnight. We spent 2 days in doing it. The person we're gonna get now, unlike Tom Harry, Dougie had the personality. That's how you should be thinking ahead of the curve, to stay on top of things, come up with new ideas, have a good rapport with all of the directors and all of the managers and the workers themselves. As Tom Harry did, he would go out into the field and talk to those people on unsolicited days. He just showed up. And it's something like that, we'll have a winner.
Mr. Sabo. Mr. Van Zee?
When Mr. Harry announced his retirement, I took this initiative to make this my top priority as a city council member, which it is. I did the homework. I was the only city council member that called references of the 2 companies we had in line. Called the references because I needed to do my background check. Make sure I was choosing the correct company to choose a new city manager. With Voorhees, we've got a company, in the short time, we've got 15 applications already. He's got over 700 emails out to the people that he thinks are, and website to get top-notch qualified individuals to apply for the job for city manager. We need to take a hard look at the finalists when they come presented to us, where he's going to break it down to the top 10 to 12. And then we're going to have to sit down, make a hard decision. What's this person's personality? What is their background by way of if they've been a city manager at another city? How are they going to interact with coming into a new situation with the heads of the departments that we have in place? Are they going to be open for suggestions? We need, that all has to take into account on how we make the decision for a new city manager. This is not, okay, we're going to choose this person. This is a decision that needs to be taken seriously, wholeheartedly, in which I'm doing. I feel that the city manager is going to steer the path of Fond du Lac for the next 5 to 10 years.
Mr. Piper.
Never served on the council yet, but it's a learning experience. I'm looking forward to doing this. The council, under the city charter, Fond du Lac, the city manager is hired by the city council. So he is directly, the city manager has to answer the city council, vice versa. So if the manager doesn't do it, the city manager doesn't do his job, then he's out. The city council say, here's your papers, away you go. But what we need is a strong, capable person to run the city, and I think there, like I said, there is someone out there. I mean, this current council, I'm sure, is gonna go back and talk to the people of these communities, or send someone maybe and look, and go in their backgrounds and see how they react to people, where they get along with the community, do they, whatever. That's the biggest thing, the reaction of the people from that community, where this guy came from, I think is a big thing. If they say, yeah, Mr. Joel was, the best guy, you know, he helped us, he loved the community, and people loved him, you know, that's great. That's good feedback to bring back to the council and help hire this individual.
Thank you. Okay, we're through the first media question. How is your water? Do you need some water, anybody?
Yes.
I stole his, yeah, so we
Dan just.
I asked him first. I asked him, swear to God, I asked her, right?
I'd like to see if members of council possibly you can get along and share. That's always a good thing to be
I'm
able to
willing to share.
We'll let them get refreshed.
Can you have some water too?
For the media, we're gonna starve the media out. We'll get you some.
Hey, guys, you're down.
Just my attendance after Dennis stands.
So we'll let everybody get refreshed.
Yeah, I got one.
I should point out that we do not have the summer AC or HVAC settings, but I assure you there's a reason for that. The minute I switch it over, we're getting 8 inches of snow.
Let's hope not.
So when you get through this, you'll thank me.
Does anybody in the room have any difficulty hearing or need an assisted hearing device? No, can you offer those?
Not really.
They just use the microphone.
Most time it's water here, I don't know.
Everything's okay?
They have to use the mic. It'll be okay.
Okay. We'll wait till Ken, Terry get back, everyone's okay? And we'll start our second question with Mr. Stensler. Okay, Greg?
I'm curious, and this doesn't necessarily have to do anything with city government, but I'm curious how you feel about the recall of Governor Scott Walker. And also, what are your impressions of the landmark changes that have been made at the state level and the impact they're having on you folks on city council?
Mr. Sabo?
Well, I think that what he's doing is good for the taxpayers. But I think he did wrong when he went to the bargaining. I mean, he was going full gear ahead, never was accepting it until when he got to bargaining. That's when all the hullabaloo started. As far as we're concerned, we lost our shared revenue that we, what was it, about $1,800 or $18,000? It was a lot of money that we send the money to medicine, but he didn't send it back to us to keep the roads going. And that's where he hurt us the most. And no, we were 1.8 million. 1.8 million that we lost. Now we got to make it up someplace. We have to cut services. We have to look at the budget again, and that really hurt. And there's another way that, you know, like I say, he's doing the job he was put in there for, but he's creating some real difficult situations for all the cities in Wisconsin.
Mr. Piper?
Well, that's a hard one, but take a shot at it. Governor Walker, my book is, he's all right. He's trying to move the state forward, but he's going into it a little quick. He's cutting the revenues and all that, you know, it's hard for the cities to cope with, you know, but he's trying to save the money, trying to get the state back on track. What he should have did is probably went into it with a more concerned or caring type attitude, you know, instead of, you know, going in and really getting the people angry or, you know, all he's doing. The collective bargaining issue, I guess, you know, it's a sticky situation. It can be a useful tool in certain situations. You know, having the company and employee relations. I can see that, but that's all I guess.
Thank you. Mr. Vanazani?
With Governor Walker, I think what he's done is the right thing. It is leading Wisconsin on the path to the correct way to go. He came into office with a $3.8 billion deficit, which had to be fixed. And he is doing that And changes had to be made. Things aren't the same way they were 5, 10, 15 years ago. People had to make sacrifices. Cities have to make sacrifices. The city has to look at different ways of making up that shared revenue loss, and which we did. So overall, I think he's done a great job. He's continuing to do it. Personally, I don't agree with the recall because he's done nothing wrong.
Ms. Morgan?
First of all, collective bargaining changes everything that happened in Madison is something that has already been decided by the state. And I can definitely understand both sides, that especially for teachers, state employees, that go into a position thinking that they're gonna have something at the end when they retire that's very hard, but yet when you can't sustain that any longer, you have to find alternate ways to sustain it. The budget shortfalls to the city is very difficult. It's time we have to be creative. We're all facing, everyone in the country is facing the same issues. Personally, I'm in healthcare. The cuts are very difficult. If you're in, with the hospital, with the nursing homes, they're all suffering, and it's a difficult time. So bottom line, we had a budget crisis. We had to address it somehow. Do I necessarily agree how everything went down? I think the governor probably could have handled some of it differently, but I believe it's an action, and we had to take some type of corrective action.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Sitter?
Obviously, Act 10 affected me very personally, and so I am for the governor's recall. I would not say that we were in a budget crisis, but I don't really need to get into all the particulars of Act 10, how it affects the city of Fond du Lac. It makes it much more difficult to run the city, and when we talk about losing services, what that means is we're losing people. I mean, that's what the city is people running the city, doing the jobs for the city. And so when you have a lot of money that needs to be saved, or maybe not saved all at one time, I mean, there's a myriad ways that this could have been accomplished. But to pit people against each other, to create an atmosphere where family gatherings have to be separated, I think is not a real strong sign of leadership. So, yeah, I'm for the recall.
Mr. Miller?
I'm the only person on this panel that has had a long-time experience under Wisconsin's collective bargaining law that was originated back in the middle to late 50s. I came to Wisconsin as a union representative for educational employees, primarily teachers, and that was expanded to educational support personnel. For 14 years, I operated and worked with education employees, bargaining units, unfettered collective bargaining, and none of those situations ever broke the bank. The abuses of collective bargaining have to be proven to me. After experiencing it for 14 years, in 1993, the legislature changed that scenario. The qualified economic offer was instituted. Immediately put a blanket, a cold water blanket over teachers and administrators. It limited their total package settlement to 3.8%. Then, to see this solution, this so-called solution, primarily fall on the shoulders of certain select public employees, to me is wrong. And to do it all at once. It is my strong opinion that the collective bargaining rights did not have to be eliminated the way they were eliminated, and the end result, I think, still would have been to have public employees. I would like to have seen all public employees, including police and fire, share that. And I think that would have helped the city of Fond du Lac be more productive in the current budget. The school district was able to do it.
Wrap up your thoughts.
Okay.
You can just watch Terry, when she gives you that sign, you got about 30 seconds.
Okay, I didn't see Terry, but I did look. I think if you hold up your yellow pad.
Mr. Stensland, is everybody on that question correct? Miss anybody? Mr. Stensland, you have a follow-up.
Bob can answer.
Okay, so you're gonna, then you wanna come back?
No.
You're only gonna ask one question this evening? Mr. Nelson?
Well, given what you just answered, a very simple question you would be facing as a city council person, are you capable of making budgetary decisions that could put others out of work?
Mr. Van Zandt?
Answer is yes, and I did this past budget. Not happy with it. We cut the full assessment department out of the city and hired an outside contractor. Plain and simple. It's a tough decision. I didn't want to do it. The inspection department was proposed to be cut to half-time. I felt it was in public's interest, best public interest, we keep that for the public citizens of Fond du Lac. And so I proposed that be brought back in for them staying full-time, which passed. So I have made the tough decisions of cutting jobs. I wasn't happy about it, but it needed to be done.
Mr. Sitter?
Of course, if you're running for this position, it's something that you just have to know that's part of the gig. That's it.
Mr. Miller?
Yes, I voted for both of those issues that Mr. Van has defined. I also, even though with my background initially as a union representative, and now seeing, that I can be on, you can't be on both sides of an issue, however, but I understand both sides of an issue, and I made those decisions after a great deal of discussion and thought, and I'm ready to make those decisions again.
Morgan?
Having been downsized during a recession, I know what it feels like. 2.5 years ago, I was let go with 550 colleagues, so definitely feel it. But when I have been in previous management positions, we had budget cuts. One of the companies I worked for had to downsize and eliminate one whole division. So I did have to let several people go from my department, so I am prepared to do that.
Mr. Van Zandt? I already got you. Mr. Sabo?
Okay. Budget cuts are tough calls to make. We could farm out a lot of the things that are being done now by city employees, cutting grass and things of that nature. And we will save some money there, but we still layoffs versus early retirement. That's what I struggle with. You're gonna have some layoffs, and then ask some people near retirement if they can early retirement. By doing that, we're not gonna have to lay off as many people as we had planned. But farming out the work the same way. You can have guys come in and cut grass at a certain rate. You don't have to pay them any pennies and all the rest of the stuff that goes with it. It all works. It comes down to how much money can you save for the taxpayer and still keep services going.
Make it plain and simple. Yes, I could do it. If I was on the city council to make the cuts. I wouldn't like doing it, I would. The pressure from the state coming down, we have to make the cuts, we have to, but I don't like to see people losing their jobs.
All our panelists have had an opportunity to answer. Bob, your follow-up question.
Different question?
Different question.
Well, I believe Dan already referred to this one. The city is looking at going to a different compensation program. and we'd like to get your thoughts on that if we could. Some of you sat through a presentation last night by a city consultant on this, and others of you are aware of it. So what are your views about the city going to a different compensation program for city employees versus the current system?
Mr. Piper?
To be honest with everybody, I missed the meeting last night because I worked, but that'd be something I'd have to study and look at the minutes and what they said on that issue.
Mr. Miller?
Yes. In my past experience as a union representative and representing the support staff at Marine Park Technical College, I represented the support staff union and helped them to deal with and develop a new pay plan. So I've been through this before. And what I heard last night from Mr. Carlson of the company that the city retained to look at this, I heard some very good things. I made the comment that you don't go into a new pay plan and because it's cheaper. You go into a new pay plan because long term it will best serve the needs of the city. And you have to define your comparables. You know, currently, well, and I want to say, the majority union lost its collective bargaining rights. So whatever happens, happens. But the private sector was used primarily as the comparability group for that group of employees. But if you go, so you have to define, which group of comparables you're going to use. We'll do that, and but I've been through it.
Mr. Solomon?
I think the first thing that they have to get used to, that everybody's got to get used to a new, scary way of getting wages. That's always the hurdle you've got to get over. And once we can get the people in a room and you explain how this all works, how smooth it could work, and what it's going to do for you in the end, that's the thing you've got to do. Even what we heard last night is very confusing as you listen to it. There's so many different ways. They were contradicting that Oshkosh is doing it, but it's not working well. So I don't know, like they're putting that up there. But we need, it's a whole learning curve. All people who are involved to get used to what's going to happen and not get scared that they're going to lose something.
Mr. Sutter?
I think coming from the position I'm in where this is the world that I live in, I have a unique perspective on how this whole thing sets up. The stuff that I heard last night in terms of supervisory roles, and now you take people that have not before been in a supervisory position that are going to dictate what the people below them, if they're going to get a pay raise or not. And I heard some conversation last night, not necessarily in regards to the compensation program, but to other parts, and I've heard it throughout the country when we compare public and private work. There's a lot of public things that happen that we're not creating a widget, you're providing a service. So how do you create from a company that makes something to a company that is doing that service? And so when you try to supervise that and say, well, how good did you provide service, that takes on a different paradigm and it's harder to quantify. So if you're going to, whatever system gets put into place, you got to have the stakeholders at the table, because I mentioned before that you don't want to have a disgruntled group of people that are running your city. So you don't go into a room and tell them what's going to happen. You ask them what they'd like to see, and then you work together to come up with something that everybody could agree upon. That's how I approach it.
Mr. Van Zee?
Compensation plan, Mr. Nelson, is going to be a big change for everybody that's employed in the city. We were presented 4 different options last night. And I said, I want to see the numbers. How do we compare? What does each option bring to the city of Fond du Lac by way of dollars and cents? We were showed last night that the city of Fond du Lac's about 20% higher pay range than when you take public and private sectors. So we need to look at that seriously. I can't make an informed decision on this until I see all the facts. And that's why I asked to see, how is this, city of Oshkosh went to an incentive-based, performance-based wages. Their performance determines how they get paid and what type of raise they get. That's the way it is most places in the public sector. And, I mean, you need to be smart. We need to be smart about this. How are we going to handle this? People aren't going to be happy, guaranteed. People are not going to be happy. Some people are going to have pay freezes. Don't know how long, but it's going to happen.
Thank you. Mr. Piper? Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Logan. Long list.
Although I'm intrigued, unfortunately, I didn't make it 6 o'clock, just there, I'm at 7, so I didn't hear the presentation.
Consider our questions right from the panel. Greg, you sustained from the second question?
Yeah.
Okay. So our panel basically is concluded, correct?
Well, you've gone through one.
Yep.
We're ready to go again.
Do you guys need to go a break or anything? You need some water, you need anything?
We're set.
All right. Mr. Menzer?
Do you think city government is deserving of the public's trust in the wake of the scandal and embezzlement in the city's information technology department, and in the wake of inappropriate behavior by police officers and fire department personnel and former city engineer? What needs to be done to ensure that unacceptable, even criminal behavior does not happen again?
There's a good one. There's a
I
good
would
one.
like to have that question repeated very carefully again, if you would.
Sir, do you think city government is deserving of the public's trust in the wake of the scandal and embezzlement in the city's information technology department, and also in the wake of inappropriate behavior by police officers and fire department personnel and a former city engineer? What needs to be done to ensure that unacceptable, even criminal behavior in city government does not happen again?
Mr. Piper?
First of all, we have an ethics committee here in the city of Fond du Lac that handles ethic violations or wrongdoing in government. The city council sets out the policy. They don't really get involved in the ethics portion of the wrongdoing of public officials, where they, like I said, they have an ethics committee. Each department has their own specific guidelines to handle their own wrongdoing of their employees or whatever. If it's the police, then we go to the Police and Fire Commission. The Police and Fire Commission handles that kind of area. But the courts as well handle they got arrested, fined, and the courts handle that, and that's up to the courts. And if it comes back, then it comes back to the administration of that particular department to find out whether or not any disciplinary action should be set forth. But public officials need to be held responsible for their actions because they're representing the public.
Amen.
And when the worst people out there trust it, they're supposed to trust it. So the city council overall needs to making sure that these policies, guidelines are followed with the policy making of the body as far as, like I said, basic thing, ethics. They have an ethics committee, they do the
This is hard to describe. We're talking about human beings. And I'm looking at the engineer, for example. I've known that man for 10 years. Did a real good job. And he was sociable, but when that came out that what he was doing, you have a hard time accepting that because he was your friend, he was your coworker, but then he was a human being. Some human beings get short-circuited. The police officer that was speeding down the road and ran into the back of a car and then ran away from the thing, he resigned today. Good for that. He admitted, and the last thing I wanted to see was retaining his job. He was way out of bounds. The MIS people, now you're talking about 4 different human beings in the same room. One was a director. High as you go. Doesn't have to go any higher than that to get signatures to buy stuff. You got 4 human beings. 1 or 2 was crooked, then you got the other 2 that go along with them. And how do you stop to these guys are working in one room all by themselves all day long, and you see maybe going out for lunch or getting it. Unless you're in there and learn what they're doing, they're human beings behind a closed door. And they turn out to be bad human beings.
30 seconds.
Okay. That's pretty much, it comes down to human beings. You don't know what the guy's going to do next time. You know, he may be the best looking guy in the world, and he's got an evil mind. How do you handle this?
Mr. Benizzi?
Yes, do we deserve public trust, Mr. President? Yes, we do. We can't control city council doesn't control every single employee of the city. People have to take it upon themselves to be good employees, have high moral standards, and good ethics. Yes, we've had a few bad apples, as they say, to spoil the stew. But overall, we look to these individuals to be trusting, high moral standards. After the MIS situation happened, Mr. Harry has done an outstanding job. He put a new procedure in place where it just doesn't stay in the department by way of check and balance. There's a new check and balance in place right now. We can't control what's going to happen in the future. We can't guarantee anything, something like this is going to happen in the future, but all we can do is put the proper procedures and steps in place to try our best to prevent this from happening again.
Ms. Morgan?
It's disappointing and unfortunate, and I had the same question you did, particularly when it came to the IT. How could those things happen? What are we doing to prevent it? And as Rob just mentioned, the city manager has put those checks and balances in place, so I'm confident at this time those type of things shouldn't happen again. But unfortunately, you can't control every city employee and their actions outside of work. So those type of things happen in every workforce in the private sector, and you can't avoid it, and it seems like it's happening more and more, it's more frequent. So to summarize, really, the internal problems that we had, like the IT department, Tom Harry has taken care of that, and I feel confident that those type of things shouldn't happen in the future.
Mr. Sitter?
I know I trust the city. I think most adults and most, thinking adults understand that individuals do not make a whole when it comes to this kind of behavior. And then when you talk about reestablishing trust, I don't know if I've ever talked to many people in town or the people I work with that say they don't trust the city because of these things. So I don't know if trust was necessarily lost, maybe in those people. And now I'm glad to hear. I didn't know about the checks and balances that have been put into place, but you make sure that the supervisors are being diligent, which obviously they were because these guys were caught, and you go from there.
Mr. Miller?
I'm sure, in the past, the employment practices, interviews and so on, try to determine whether somebody's greedy or somebody is prone to abuse alcohol, or in the city engineer situation, have these weird desires for children. But to answer your question, I believe we deserve the trust. We must earn the trust, and I think the procedures are in place for that to happen. I also have not, other than media folks, had this question posed to me. And that's not saying that I don't like the question, but it's greed, it's alcohol, it's something else, which is controlling the individual behavior. And there's virtually no way that you can ever guarantee that you can find out this kind of behavior in advance. It just happens. So unfortunate that a police incident or two, a firefighter incident or two, had alcohol as the overriding substance involved. And also with the city engineer, very competent individual that we lost because of whatever's going on within his mind. So, and also with the MIS department, thank goodness for a new employee who said something's wrong, blew the whistle, and if that wouldn't have happened, we may still, you wouldn't answer, ask this particular question for the MIS department, it would still be going on. So I still, that employee deserves a lot of credit. So that's it.
Thank you. Follow up, Mike?
No. I'll defer to Greg.
Okay. Greg?
Just a point, I think it's important, one thing that hasn't been mentioned, Tom Harry was hired following another scandal at City Hall. In fact, he was hired to restore public confidence in city government. I'm just curious, and it's been one thing after another. As Mike mentioned, a hit and run and a cover-up, child pornography at work, stealing from taxpayers. Is this normal? And I mean, we say, well, it's just one incident, and then it's just another incident, and another one, and another. Is this common in the town of 40,000, or is this the culture that has developed that these people think they can get away with it because nobody's knows what they're doing or watching them closely enough or implementing the discipline that's appropriate? To me, that's a lot of those are a lot of incidents for a town this size. And I think a lot of people in this community would agree with that.
Mr. Miller?
Was that a question? I listen to your program almost on a daily basis. You make a lot of statements. You made a statement. What's your question?
I guess I heard everyone say it's not a problem, everything's taken care of. It's isolated incidents, but it's not one isolated incident or two or three or four, it's 5 or 6 or 7. Isn't that a problem?
I don't remember saying that was not a problem.
My
Matter of
question
fact,
is,
when I refer to greed and alcohol, that is a problem. That is an absolute problem. But 33 years living in the city of Fond du Lac, I love this city. And maybe it's because we've had a group of bad apples, that were employed, gave good service up to a point in time. But I don't believe that this should cast a cultural blight over the city of Fond du Lac. I just don't believe so. We've had some unfortunate situations, but they certainly, it wasn't as a result of their employment. Their employment didn't cause them to drink alcohol and do stupid things. In the MIS situation, yeah, it was because of their employment, but it was because of not because of their employment, but it was convenient because of their employment, but it was the greed. It was individual greed. And that's I heard earlier today, all too often, we want to put a label. We want to put a label on the city because of even these kinds of incidents. 30 seconds. And I think that's an unfair characterization.
If I could, and I know there's some sidebar conversations that are happening out in the audience, and I don't want to inflict stopping your freedom of speech here, but I think out of respect for our candidates that are up here, maybe we just keep our conversations between us to ourselves and then be able to step up. Mr. Sitter.
I agree when you put them all back to back to back, it's pretty bad. It looks sort of train wreck-ish. But I think the question that was asked was not, are all of these incidences bad? Yeah, they're bad, but do you not trust the city anymore? And again, I think that's why you got the answer of individuals versus the city. I think it is a separate, and I think Mr. Miller just did a real nice pointing that out, that, just because a police officer decides to drink and do something silly isn't a reflection necessarily on the city itself. Unfortunately, but perception is reality. So, to each their own. The question is, how do you deal with it then? And so by, re-engaging trust or trying to re-establish trust then with the citizens of the city, if people feel that way, you can be a hammer, but then everybody becomes a nail. So you have to, you do your best to set up, and I hear the checks and balances thing, and I don't know enough about what all the different stopgaps are for the city or how they have their disciplinary set up. But I'm sure that nobody's sitting on the sidelines saying, hey, this is acceptable behavior.
Gordon?
I guess in the back of my mind, I question just what you're saying, and I think about the $240,000 that was embezzled over a period of time, and nobody seemed to notice that all does bother me. And I have been told these checks and balances have been put in place, but I will still have that doubt a little bit in the back of my mind. Although, with the pharmaceutical company I work for, just within my region, there was a share of big scandals. So if you put it in perspective to other private sector companies, those things do happen. And so when I compare the two and I see what happened over a short period of time with the previous company I worked for, it's happening. And if you watch the news, it's happening all over in the workforce.
The incidents that have happened, Greg, you lined them up. It's quite a few. But we are dealing, as a city, with human beings. We can do all the background checks to hire these people, take psychological exams, and they can pass them all with flying colors. But we cannot determine what a person is feeling or thinking inside. When I talk to my son, and I catch him in a lie, what happens when you lie? I get caught. Every time. I might not catch it the same day, I might catch it 2 weeks down the road, but he gets caught. When individuals do something wrong, whether it's drink and drive, they might not think they're going to get caught, but eventually it's going to catch up with them. We can't control what every single city employee does on their off time. We've got the checks and balances to what happens on time while they're working for the city, but we don't know what's going to happen, what they're doing while they're away from their work. We can't control individuals.
Mr. Soppel?
Interesting conversation. My terms on the city council from 2002 to 2008, I can only recall one incident with the police department. That was called the bar crawl. We were off-duty guys, and they were having a few beers down at Joe's Fox Hut or someplace, and then they put furniture outside. But that wasn't, that was fun. But what happened in 2008? The stock markets fell. People lost their jobs. People lost their homes. And then the mentality of all these people changed. How can I get something for free? Think about that. You go down to a farm like you can't count on 150 fingers how many signs are up for closure. That wasn't like that before 2008. So I think most of it started with the stock market crash. It changed people's personalities big time. People were out of work. When you're out of work, where do you get the money from? Stealing, being sneaky and embezzling. That's the only answer I can think of.
Mr. Piper?
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. A lot of the stuff that comes across is from probably the way the economy is. Why people are doing this stuff. They're out of work, they need money, greed, whatever. I mean, maybe the officers have marital problems at home. How do we know that? Maybe it wasn't, nothing to do with the city. But we shouldn't have to, you know, the way the economy is, people are hurting. You know, people are struggling, so what are you gonna do? Embezzle money, try to see if you can get away with it? Well, drink, whatever is the thing, but I mean, it's a black mark for the city, and am I oppressed about it? No. I mean, every time I turn the news on, Fond du Lac, it's like, and it's not a happy thing to see all the time. And I hope right now that the city moves on and we continue providing capable people to run the city and to do the jobs to do. I mean, it's sad.
From the negative to the positive, everybody, I think in this room, realizes Fond du Lac is a great place to live. My question is, what makes, in your opinions, what makes Fond du Lac a great place to live? What threatens that quality of life? And if you were elected to the council, what would you do to make sure that that quality of life that makes Fond du Lac a great place to live continues?
Mr. Morgan?
I guess first thing that I'm thinking of is the people, and when I moved here, it was difficult for us to get to know people. Our son wasn't born yet, and we joined the Elks. So I have a love and a passion for the Elks and the community work that we do together. They've always been my family and have always supported us. So what my experience with the community and how friendly everyone is, it's been amazing, and I guess we didn't find that in our previous community that we lived in. I think the thing that threatens it, and one reason I'm really wanting to run for city council, is that the high taxes and the high water bills, will it affect my ability to retire here someday? When I look at monthly what I put aside for water bills and taxes, that concerns me when I'm living on Social Security someday. Can I still meet my budget?
Mr. Miller? Well, I agree. But when we moved to Fond du Lac in 1979, we were showing around town because we had to find a place to live. And one of the comments was almost an offhanded comment, but it really hit me right in the heart. And that was, you know, you're going to find Fond du Lac to be a terribly cliquish city. And I really didn't know what that meant. But over the last 33 years, what makes Fond du Lac a wonderful place to live, even to the point where my wife and I finally are going to be buried here. And that think about that. That's a tough decision. We're going to be here forever. We found out through some of my voluntary activities, especially through Kiwanis, our church, my involvement with the Boy Scouts over many years, that this city is so friendly and is so welcoming. We've gone from somebody also said, Fond du Lac's a terribly white community. Well, we've diversified, and there are many possibilities there. But one of the things that I believe that will jeopardize Fond du Lac being this wonderful, welcoming place is that if we try to close our minds, try to just follow one set of principles, that's not going to work. But this is a wonderful, a welcoming, a warming, heartwarming place to live.
Mr. Sitter?
I grew up in Oshkosh, and so there was some rivalry between Oshkosh and Fond du Lac. My mom grew up here, and so she was always bringing us back here with family and whatnot. And my brother and I were like, we're going to Fond du Lac. And so I grew up with this idea of like Fond du Lac. Oshkosh was the greatest place in the world. And then I left and did a bunch of stuff, and I came back, and I ended up where else? In Fond du Lac. And at first I was like, oh, all right, I don't know what to expect because it was always this rivalry thing, and I didn't know anything about the town. And then I got here and I started working in the schools. And I got to meet a ton of great people, and I was like, wow, this is great. I have a great time. I haven't run into anybody that said, hey, sit or get out yet. I'm sure somebody might have said that, but I don't know who they are, so I'm not going to worry about it. And that's, I think that's what we want to maintain. We want to maintain a place where people come and they feel welcome, and everything that everyone has said is, it's all happy times. I love the parks and everything. We have to maintain those. We have to maintain great schools. That's a huge part of quality of life in this city. Without that, everything else falls apart. And then what threatens it? It was interesting. At first I had a thought, and I was listening. It's kind of the benefit of not going first. And I would say that what drives people apart, when I keep hearing these things, like they're so worried, and nobody likes to pay taxes, nobody likes to pay high water bills. I obviously don't. But what frightens me a little bit, I think one of the biggest threats to it, and not just in Fond du Lac, but everywhere, is this sense of going back to Jim's comment of 08, now that people have less of this, I'm going to hold on to what's mine and I'm going to shut my doors to my neighbors. And so those taxes, and the water bills and such, but the taxes are what allows us to all take care of each other. And so we're going to continue to be friendly and open and honest with everyone, and we have to not get into that mentality of hiding in our hole and saying, I'm going to hold on to what's mine.
Thank you, Mr. Sitter. Mr. Sabo.
Okay, I don't know about 50 years now. Quality of life has been good for some of us. Back in 50 years ago, I worked downtown, and downtown was not like it is now. You had a tavern on every corner, and every Friday and Saturday night there was music in every single one of those bars. It was fun. We didn't have any problems. We all had a job. You buy a beer for 10 cents. But the first thing I did, then somebody got me to become a JC, okay? That was the best move that I ever did. I started the Miss Fond du Lac pageant in 1962, 3, 4. That's still going. And Wally Weekend, I've been involved in that for 35 years. It's still going. I got some bad news today though that Mary Ann Gilling is moving on. I did the music under the stars for 35 years and I'm still going to do it. This is all quality of life. This is things going on in the park. This is where you go out and relax and have a beer and watch the kids play. But it's changed. We don't have bars in every corner anymore. We got so many restrictions. Rules and regulations that we have to abide by now because how we grew. We grew and the times changed, music changed, everything changed. It's a matter of how do you accept those changes, or do you do what I do and just go along with it and stay involved.
Mr. Van Zandt.
What makes Fond du Lac a great place to live? Each and every one of you in here, everybody that's out there at their homes. That's what makes this city, the citizens, the residents. That's why I love doing this job. Quality of life issues. We have Walleye Weekend, Fondue Fest. We got the rummage sales downtown. Swimming pools. We've got them all. I mean, quality of life issues are all over the place. We need to keep them up. The thing that threatens the city of Fond du Lac, everyone in here, everyone out there, depending on what you do personally, are you going to embrace this city like I want? Are you going to go out, support the businesses? That's what threatens the city of Fond du Lac. No one else, but us as residents.
Mr. Piper.
Put the words out of my mouth. What makes Fond du Lac a great place to live, you people out here. I love this city. I lived in Ripon all my life, born and educated there, and I moved over here. When I lived in Ripon, I came over here every day to work. And I finally made the move in 2002, and I love this community to death. The people, they're friendly, they like to talk to you, and I don't know, I can't find nothing bad to say about it. With all the activities we have in this community for kids, for adults, for the senior citizens, for the everything. It's unbelievable. I mean, I think it's great. What threatens the high tax bills, taxes, water bills, whatever. Vacant buildings downtown. We need to hopefully correct that and get some businesses in them.
Thank you, Mr. Piper. That concludes our panel. Everyone's had a shot. Everyone take a deep breath before you give your closing remark. Does anyone need water? Is everyone comfortable? We're going to be wrapping up here very shortly our time. We do appreciate everybody's patience this evening. Each candidate will give an opportunity to make a 1-minute closing remark. And we will begin with Mr. Salvi.
Well, thank you. If I get elected to council, I will promise, as I have in the past, that I will represent every citizen to the best of my ability. I will take on each issue as it comes before me in the best interest of our citizens and the community as a whole. I will always be open to your calls or concerns, questions, maybe or just your interest in what we're doing and particular projects that may be on the table. Once again, I urge your support in the April 3 election. I promise I'll continue support as I have for the last 8 years. And Mr. Miller, if you're coming to Gary, come see me.
Thank you again. I'd like to thank the panel again for having us. If elected to a seat on their city council, I will be one, above all else, will always make the decisions in the best interest of the city, our citizens, and our future. But I am committed to efficient, open, local government that reflects the needs and desires of you people. Open. I know something. Do I got some time left?
30 seconds.
I forgot at the beginning of my statement, I have served on several governmental committees in Ripon, chairman on one. I'm currently on the Parks Board in Fond du Lac, and also I'm the vice president of the Taylor Park, Friends of Taylor Park Incorporated here in town on the board of directors. So I'm a big avid supporter of Taylor Park. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Van Zandt.
I want to begin by thanking Marty Ryan for being our moderator tonight, Ken Hall for your hospitality. To everyone in attendance here, thank you for coming to make an informed decision for this important election. To all the candidates, good luck on April 3rd. Why should the citizens re-elect me to City Council? I love this great city. I'm the only candidate that has truly listened to all the citizens of Fond du Lac when they have come to me, no matter what the subject may be. I want to continue to serve you, the citizens, as your representative on this council. I feel that I have proven that I am the best candidate for this position. I'm a regular person that listens to you, the citizens. Over the last 2 years, I've done my homework for each and every meeting to make informed and educated decisions. I have asked the tough questions and don't just rubber stamp things that come before me, regardless if it's a popular thing to do or not. I have just recently been endorsed by the Homeowners Building Association. So if
5 seconds.
if what you are looking for is honest integrity and someone to truly represent you, the citizens, then elect me on April 3rd. Thank you.
Ms. Lorgan?
My family and I believe it's our civic duty to always give back to the community however you can. With my son living elsewhere, it's just my husband and our dog at home. So now's the time to do something I've always wanted to do. I believe I can make a difference. Let's see if we can get the Arts District built, eliminate some of the blight on Main Street, get the bypass project done, and keep Taylor Park Pool open for years to come. I've been asked many times why I want to run for city council. They say, let somebody else do it. But who is that somebody else? I believe that somebody else is me and all of you to help your community however you can. I was raised with a strong work ethic and promise to work hard for you. Trust in me, vote for me, and let's keep Fond du Lac affordable. Thank you.
Mr. Sitter?
I didn't know what I was getting into when I got into this race. I do know now. I've known since about November. I've taken it very seriously. I listen to everybody. I believe in everybody's got a piece of the pie, so you listen to every single person because you want that to be the best place that we can all call home. And I like the fact that this is a position that is dependent upon the input of the people that live next door to me, the people that live behind me, and the people I see every day. So if you elect me, I'll bring to the table the ability to listen, the ability to comprehend, and the ability to do the job that I think you'd all be proud of. Thank you.
And concluding will be Mr. Miller.
Thank you. Thank you, Marty, and panel, Mr. Hall. Here's what I will do. If reelected to the Fond du Lac City Council, I will keep an open mind and make informed, intelligent decisions. I also listen to everybody. I never turn anybody down. I will maintain fiscal responsibility on financial matters. I will continue to exercise leadership on issues that impact community health and well-being. For example, I have a strong leadership role in the Taylor Park Pool Initiative. And I will be always available to citizens and community groups to share ideas one way or another. And hopefully you'll be on the receiving end of my urban chicken survey within the next 2 weeks. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes our formal interaction with our candidates. As moderator, I also would just like to thank the members, our panelists, for giving up their time to spend some time on some very tough questions. To the audience who took time on a beautiful night, I didn't think we'd have anybody here tonight. And you took time off one of the nicest nights we've had. Also like to recognize Mark Weber, former president of City Council. Mark DeGello's here, and also a member of the council is also in the fact. So just like, and I also want to recognize there is a write-in candidate, and Mr. Webb is in the back. He can stand up. The people who are here, if you want to ask him a question, he couldn't be part of our panel tonight by the laws that we have, by the guidelines. So, but I wanted the people to know that there is a write-in candidate, and he's here for you to have a discussion. With that, we will go ahead and conclude our evening. I wish you candidates, only so many are going to win. As you heard tonight by your panelists, there are a lot of big and tough decisions. And we've got to put on our big boy pants and our big girl pants and make some tough decisions. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to come up here and do that. Thank you.